So I'm going to use my small angle grinder to cut a hole in the clay soil pipe. Right, so I've ground a hole with my angle grinder. Now I've got to clean that debris out in a minute. And if you look, your pipe's going to be going in at that angle. But that means that half your pipe on this side will be protruding down into the hole, which could cause a blockage. So what you need to do is get your pencil and mark roughly around this shape, and you'll have a kind of shape that comes up and back round, because you don't want that sticking down and blocking any debris and toilet tissue and whatever else is in there. I'm going to cut this to size using my jigsaw. I'll put it in, see if it fits. If it doesn't, we'll make some fine adjustments until it's right. So there's my piece of cut pipe. Then we can fill around the gaps with some plumber's mate and some cement and concrete. When you're cutting your soil pipe, you want to make sure on the cut end that you use a file and just smooth off the end. This allows you to push the joints together easily. You can either use washing up liquid to assist you around the end, or you can buy a proper silicone spray. I've used the level and I've got all my drains sloping gently down towards the soil pipe, and I've cut this pipe so that it's not causing a blockage inside the clay pipe. So the next thing to do is fill these gaps up with putty or plumber's mate. Right, so I'm just using some Evo stick plumber's mate. You've got to be careful not to push the plumber's mate inside the pipe, but as long as it's sealed up, it'll stop my concrete falling through after, so you'll have a double seal really. Here's my pipe with the putty finished. Now it's ready for concrete. So I put a thin layer of chip-ins across the base of my trench, all the way along there, and so that it's all sloping down towards me and towards this drain. Once I've got my perforated drain in place, I'm going to cover that over with chip-ins up to the required height. Now I'm going to drill a hole into my down pipe before it gets into the bend, and that's going to be for my perforated drain. So you need to get a hole saw, you need to get one that's the right size for your perforated drain, drill into this, and then my pipe's going to run along here and into there. I can then sit in there and it runs straight into there. I've laid one length of pipe along my layer of chip-ins, and now I've just got to do another one here and join the two together. I'm going to do this just by drilling a small hole in this pipe and connecting them together. I get this piece of pipe and I'll just literally push it into the other pipe. Right, so I'm just filling the trench with gravel. So I know that's my inside floor level. In fact, my inside floor level is about by there. So it's what I've done is I've gone 2 bricks below that, and that's where my gravel is going. I just got this little bit left there to do, and then that's the French drain done. Now if you see on your ends, we've had to cut a shorter section off. You cut through the plastic with a saw, you cut through the metal using an angle grinder with a metal cutting blade. Just like that one. Right, I've applied sealant to the inside of this brown pipe, and I've fixed that inside, so that should go off nicely. I've done my gravel over the French drain, all the way up to the required height. And what I've done here is I've used some reclaimed bricks that I had lying around the house, and I've just tapped those down on the soil with a hammer, just to give a neat edge to the back. I only use bricks this side as there's no need for concrete, because there's no rain gets onto this side. Because I've got a woodshed here with a gutter that overhangs, and you never really get the water there. What I've done is use some old plywood offcuts, and I've put those in there, and that's enabled me to fill this hole with gravel. So I've backfilled it with gravel around my soil pipe and around the U-bend, and that gives it good stability and it spreads the weight when it's walked on. And now this area I can go over with concrete. If you look this side, the shuttering's stopping anything falling in, so I can put a bit of concrete around my joints that I showed you earlier, and then when that's gone off I can backfill this side with a bit more gravel, and I'll probably do gravel up to about the top of these joints, and then I'll fill all this soil and rubble back in and then put grass over the top. I've also put some chip-ins just in this little trench here before filling it with concrete, and I've just run my finger all the way along and just compacted it in. And I've done exactly the same along here, and I've just compacted it in so these are solid when you stand on them. And then when we put the concrete in as well, they'll be rock hard. The next thing to do is mix the concrete. The mix I'm going to use today is 6 chip-ins to 3 sand to 1 cement. When mixing concrete, just double check that the mix you're doing is appropriate for the job you're doing. The best way to measure out your mix accurately is to use a bucket. If you use the bucket to the top each time, you're going to get exact measurements. If you start doing shovelfuls, it's always going to be a little bit out. Once you fill the gaps with concrete, just use the plasterer's trowel and smooth backwards towards the path. That'll give you a nice smooth level just to dip down into your drain. Make sure all the water runs off. Right, it's the next day. I tamped my concrete down and I've let it set. So here's the big patch that I had to fill in. I put that gravel down over that French drain, and I did that to about 4 inches over the French drain, as you could see earlier. And I've gone over it with the concrete, and then if you look all along here, I've just sloped the edge down towards the drain. You can see I've done that all the way around, just all sloping inwards. To get this smooth finish, as I showed you earlier in the video, you just take a piece of wood like that and you tamp it all down, and it brings the water to the surface. Then you use a plastering trowel and you can just go along that and smooth it all in nicely. And once it goes off and it's gone more or less hard, and just lightly brush it with a slightly damp sponge, and that'll give you this nice slightly rough finish. And as you can see, where I put these boards in here, we've got a lovely straight concrete edge. But what I have to make sure here is that I backfill all this with chip-ins and soil before removing the wood, because the concrete only goes down so many inches, and the fill underneath may come out and make the concrete unstable and crack. So we'll fill this up now with chip-ins, get the soil in, then we'll pull the board out and then fill the little gap in between. My concrete's set inside there around the join in my pipe, so we're good to backfill it now. What I did to get my neat edges on the corner is just put some bricks in place like that. That gives you a nice square edge for your concrete. Where I had little bits like this that I decided to patch up, I just put a brick against the old concrete for a neat straight edge, and I've just wedged it up with another piece of brick and wood just to make sure it stayed tight. So we're almost full back up with soil. We'll remove the final board carefully so not to break any concrete. Right, so we've backfilled the gravel. We've filled it with soil. I've used some turf that I sliced out at the start of the project, and I've laid it back to give a neat edge. You can see this is where I had my bricks to create a nice neat corner. And there's my other little bit of concrete that I patched up. I've taken my big pile of rubble away and I've raked it out. So all that's levelled, all the drains in. You can see all the way along here the completed project. Nice. All done, job's a good one. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please feel free to fire any questions at me that you have. I've been Pouse Around the House. See you next time.